The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
I want to tell you an amazing story. This happened a few years ago. So there's a couple, let's call them Reuven and Rachel. Reuven and Rachel are a traditional couple, not Orthodox, not secular, living in Tel Aviv. Reuven and Rachel have been married 10 years, no kids. Now, many of Reuven's friends and many of Rachel's friends knew that this couple was childless. One day, Avi, the friend of Reuven, tells Reuven, I just saw that there is a segula that if there's a couple without kids, one of them should go to the grave of Rabbi Elimelech Lizhensk, which is in Poland, and pray for a child. So Reuven says, I don't know, it's far away, I don't know what Poland is, how do we get there? Avi says, you know what, Reuven, let's go together. So Reuven says, you know what, I don't lose anything. He tells his wife agrees, and Reuven goes with Avi to Poland, Lizhensk, to pray by the grave of Rabbi Elimelech Lizhensk. Okay, so Reuven goes into the area on his own, and he starts to pray, and the wells of tears came out. He was crying and crying and crying. He could not control himself. He never felt this. At that time, Reuven says, Rav Elimelech, if my wife has a baby within a year, bischutcha, in your merit, I will call my son by your name. Reuven finished the tefillah. He went back with Avi. They traveled back to Israel, and that was that part of the story. A couple of months later, Rachel is pregnant. And they're both very excited. They don't want to tell anybody yet. Many months passed. Eventually, it was obvious she was pregnant. Now, Reuven knew that he made a neder, and he must call the son Elimelech. But his wife doesn't like old-fashioned names. So he was afraid what would be her reaction. He did not want to upset her during the pregnancy. So month after month passed. Eventually, Rachel, B'Sha'ah Tova, gave birth to a beautiful boy. Reuven realizes, I have to tell her now. So Reuven goes to Rachel, sits her down with a cake and some coffee, and he says, Rachel, you remember when I went last year to the grave of Rabbi Elimelech Lizhensk? She says, yeah. Do you know what I did there? She says, you prayed. And you know that bischut, in the merit of that prayer, you gave birth? She says, yes. I want to tell you a secret, says Reuven. I made a neder, an oath, that if you were to give birth to a boy within a year, I will call the child Elimelech. And Rachel says, excuse me, Elimelech is an old-fashioned name. I want a modern name, not Elimelech. And he was saying, but I made a neder. I made a promise. She says, that's very cool. You made a promise, but the baby's also mine. She says, absolutely not. We're not calling the child Elimelech. But what about the neder? So she says, go to a Rav and do hatarat nedarim. He went to Avi, his friend. Avi went to his Rav with him, and he told the Rav the problem. And the Rav says, okay, you know what? Let's make a compromise. She will call the baby with the first name, and you will be the one that calls the second name. In other words, he's going to have two names. Something Elimelech. Elimelech is a secondary name, and the main name is whatever she chooses. Is that so? So Reuven asks the Rav, is that legit? Is that good? The Rav says, absolutely. So the deal went, and Reuven went back to his wife, Rachel, told Rachel, you know what? You will decide the first name, I'll decide the second name. Deal? She says, deal. Okay, a couple of days later, there's a Brit Milah, and the Rav says to the Abba, to the father Reuven, Veikare Shemo beIsrael, what's his name? So he says, Noam Elimelech. So he knew that Noam was because of his wife. She wanted Noam, and Elimelech was him. After the Brit Milah, the Rav goes to Avi and Reuven and says to them, do you know what Siyata Dishmayel is here? Do you know what happened today? They say, no, what happened? He said, you should know that Rabbi Elimelech Lizhensk wrote a sefer, a very well-known, famous sefer. It's called Noam Elimelech. So when your wife decided Noam and you decided Elimelech, you thought you were compromising. She thought she was compromising. But really, Noam Elimelech is the complete name of Rabbi Elimelech Lizhensk. And that's how he named his sefer, Noam Elimelech. Thank you.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org